In the wilds of the Masai Mara, where life and death are separated by a roar, there once existed a rare alliance. 6 male lions, united not by chance, but by blood. At the head of the pack was Notch, a black-maned old lion with the experience of a warrior and the heart of a father. Together with his 5 sons, Caesar, Ron, Mighty Long, Grimace and Notch II, he not only held vast territories but also rewrote the definitions of power, family and survival in the wild. Since 2004, after overthrowing the male lions of the Marsh Pride with the light male, Notch has been at the pinnacle of power. Marsh Pride, one of the largest and most famous female prides in the Masai Mara, became the dominant center of the new alliance. However, after the death of light male, instead of leaving and starting over as was the norm, Notch chose to stay. This was a decision that went against the instincts of the species. Not only did Notch stay, he also raised his male cubs, something that few male lions in the wild have ever done. Normally, males would be forced to leave the pride when they reach adulthood to avoid inbreeding. But Notch did not do that. He kept his sons by his side, teaching them how to survive, fight, and defend their territory. From their earliest days as weaklings by the water, the cubs learned to watch their fathers confront intruders, share spoils, and patrol their territory. It was not just their size or strength that made the Notch alliance so special and remembered as a rare phenomenon in the wild, that it was the nature of the bond between its members, their bloodlines. Unlike most male lion alliances, which are formed by strangers who bond temporarily for survival, where males typically stay with a pride for only 2 to 4 years before being replaced, Notch chose to retain and train his own sons. This was a complete break with the genetic dispersal rule of lions, which is that 95% of lion alliances are unrelated, which most prides do to avoid inbreeding. They were not just allies, they were family. And in every battle, every hunt and every patrol, they acted not just to survive, but to protect each other as a unified entity, like blood running through the grasslands. By 2008, the alliance was officially formed. Notch, with his sons, now adults, began to expand their territory beyond the Marsh Pride. They moved towards Olkiombo, Serena, and then Mugoro. This is fertile, but also dangerous territory, where many other wandering male alliances are lurking. What makes the Notch alliance special is their coordination. Rather than being a loosely knit group like many other male lion groups, they act as a fighting formation, dividing up directions, assigning roles, providing support and rescue. Buffalo hunts and battles with enemies demonstrate how they work together as a military unit. 2011, the stability of the alliance was tested when a group of young male lions known as the Sand River Males invaded the southern Magoro area. They were a powerful group, young, ambitious and hungry for power. The encounter between the two sides was one of the largest battles recorded in the Masai Mara. The sky darkened. A storm was brewing from the west. The air was thick, heavy, as if holding its breath for something to happen. The herd disappeared from the grasslands. An eerie silence fell. Then a roar rang out, signaling the start of the battle. The sky darkened, the wind howled. The grasslands held their breath. The roar tore through the air. Ron charged. Caesar locked the ring. Grimace was blocked. Claws, teeth, blood. Suddenly, Notch appeared. A bite. A body fell. The rain poured. The survivors fled. The ones who remained, legends. Notch did not roar. He just stood there. Silent. Proud. Amidst his cubs and the echoes of his victory, none survived the passage of time. After 2013, the alliance began to falter. Mighty Long was the first to disappear. No one knew why, perhaps in a lone battle. Grimace was ambushed by a strange alliance near Talik. Ron, the proud warrior, was killed by a group of young lions who invaded from the west in 2016. Caesar died after weeks of emaciation from a deep wound. Notch, now with only Notch 2 by his side, grew weaker. In 2013, he was found lying under an acacia tree, eyes closed, his black mane grey, the last king to leave his throne. Notch 2 was not alone for long. He teamed up with his son, Spearboy, to form the Lookout Pride. From this bloodline, a new generation was born. Caesar the Count, Ron II, Blue Eyes, Dongo, powerful individuals who continue to control the 4 great prides in the Masai Mara Reserve. Notch's legacy is not only the territory he traversed, but the way he raised his children, building a strong alliance from his own flesh and blood. A model of father, son, grandson that has never been seen before in the lion world. On dry nights, when the grasses rustle and the insects stop, if you hear a deep, distant roar, it may be a sign. Notch's legacy is still there, patrolling the grass. The story of Notch and his alliance is more than an epic of power. It is proof that in the cruelest world, blood ties, the bond of father and son, can be the strongest weapon for survival. Despite his advanced age, as he aged, Notch withdrew from the fighting life, spending most of his time resting in the shade of trees. He no longer followed the pack to hunt, and his movements became slower and slower. Observers once recorded Notch lying for hours on the banks of the Talik River, his eyes half closed as if contemplating his glorious years. In the end, he passed away quietly. There was no final battle, no decisive bite. Notch breathed his last breath in the wild, as a true king should. Notch's legacy cannot be measured by the number of cubs or the territory he controlled. Those were the first footprints that gave birth to the Scarface dynasty, the seed of many generations of Masai Mara lions, and a living image of the concept of hereditary kingship in the wild. Today, many lions living in the Masai Mara still carry Notch's genes, either directly or indirectly. When the first rays of sunlight hit the cracked earth of the African wilderness, an ancient law still exists. In the world of lions, every male must eventually leave. When a male lion reaches adulthood, he is pushed out by his pride. Without the protection of his mother, without the tolerance of his father, it is the beginning of a journey of survival, alone, full of blood and fangs. But in 2006, in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, South Africa, something unusual happened. 6 male lions, not in the same pride, not related by blood, chose to stay together. Their names will be remembered by the whole world: Makulu, Rasta, Scar, Pretty Boy, Kinky Tail, and Mr. T. Six wild warriors forming an unprecedented alliance, both in numbers and influence. No one knows why they bonded, perhaps because they grew up together in times of scarcity, or simply because their survival instincts made them need each other more than ever. Day by day they grew up in silence, without fanfare, without growling and fighting, but each pounce, each step was stronger. Not long after, the whole reserve began to stir. A group of male lions moved together, hunted together, and fought as if they had only one will. When animals, once known as solitary, united creatures, they were no longer individuals. They became phenomena. And a legend began from here, when 6 male lions put aside their egos to create something bigger than themselves. An alliance, an empire, a nightmare for all opponents. At that moment, no one knew that they had just witnessed the beginning of the greatest lion alliance that nature had ever produced. They were not simply wandering around looking for shelter. They had a target, and that target was an entire kingdom. The Lion Alliance, with 6 adult individuals, each strong enough to rule an area, now marched forward together, silently but unstoppably. The first territory they targeted belonged to 2 old lions, who had once held the largest pride of females in the eastern Sabi Sands. Without negotiation, without warning, within minutes, the Mapogo Alliance had ended that dynasty, a death so swift that no one could understand what had happened. 6 individuals, 6 personalities, 6 different hunting schedules. And then, one misty June morning, they attacked. Kinky Tail was patrolling alone. Perhaps he was complacent, or perhaps he believed his comrades were nearby. He didn't notice the danger until all 4 attackers had circled around to either side. The battle lasted nearly 15 minutes, longer than any other ambush. Kinky Tail, though badly wounded, managed to bite a Salati in the neck, knocking it down. But eventually his stamina was exhausted. He fell in the grass, his eyes still wide open, as if he hadn't yet come to terms with the truth. Mr. T arrived later. Too late to save him, but in time to see the last scratch marks on the ground, where his closest brother had once lain. Kinky Tail's death was not just a loss, It was a fracture. The alliance of 6 was now down to 5, but to Mapogo each member was an irreplaceable link. Scar began to retreat from the points of conflict. He was no longer interested in hunting in groups. Sometimes he would disappear for weeks at a time, appearing in distant corners of the territory like a ghost. Makulu, now over 10 years old, moved more slowly, coughed more, and showed signs of old age. Rasta still fought, but more quietly than before. And Mr. T, since the loss of his brother, had become unusually fierce, even attacking a lioness in his own pride. Mapogo's territory still existed, but its spirit was no longer intact. When a giant tree is hollow from the inside, it doesn't need a big storm, just a gust of wind to knock it down. When an empire falls into darkness, not all the rest fall. Some still stand, still fight, not for glory, but because it is the only thing they know how to do. After Kinky Tail's death, Mapogo did not immediately disband. But something inside them changed, like a piece of music that loses its bass line, even though the orchestra still plays. Everything is out of tune. Rasta, the quietest of them all, began to become a ghostly guardian. He no longer traveled with the group, but traveled alone to the furthest reaches of the border. If he saw any signs of intrusion, he would strike first, without warning, without growling. Scar, the oldest, the scarred, the smartest, no longer appeared beside anyone. He traveled alone, slept alone, hunted alone. For weeks, observers recorded no trace. When he reappeared, his fur was ragged, his ribs were visible under his skin, his eyes were empty as if he had seen through time. Mr. T and Pretty Boy held on to what was left. They did not part, the two survivors standing silently in the maelstrom of the changed times. They marked their territory every day, but the roars were quieter, the rests longer, and each step carried the weight of memories. Rasta fell in an unequal battle. He fought alone against 3 young males who were testing the boundaries of Mapogo territory. No one knew exactly what happened, but the traces left behind showed that he did not retreat and died while still fighting. Mr. T no longer held himself. He was more aggressive, easily angered, and even attacked the lionesses in the pride. Pretty Boy, on the other hand, was strangely calm, as if he had accepted everything. Between those two poles, the last days of the alliance passed like the last breath of an old king. The sunset touched their silvered fur. They no longer looked forward, they only looked back, where their brothers were no longer present but never forgotten. And in the wild, sometimes, silence is the most fitting end for a creature that once roared across the four corners of the earth. Mr. T and Pretty Boy are the last. They no longer conquer territory, no longer hunt rivals. They live on as the last guardians of Mapogo's soul. As the days pass, no one knows exactly how long they will live. But their image, the old lion, the dark mane, the eyes that have witnessed everything, has become the living symbol of a legend. Today, a third of the lion cubs born in the area have Mapogo blood. That legacy is no longer in the roar, but in every cell, every breath of the next generation. We no longer see Mapogo, but Mapogo has never disappeared. The Mapogo Alliance has completely changed the way we perceive lions. They are not alone, not just rulers by force, but creatures who know how to sacrifice, how to trust and live as a unified whole. Since Mapogo, male alliances have become more numerous, larger, and more closely knit. All of them unconsciously repeat the pattern that Mapogo left behind. Time may erase footprints, but it cannot erase the mark. And there are legends that, though silent, live on in the breath of the earth.